I saw how well that the Giants were playing. And I was like, what? The score was 19-0 going into the fourth quarter, roughly, if my memory serves me correct. I was like, okay, the Giants have this in the bag. Every time I turned around, I was seeing something negative going on offensively for the Broncos, and it seemed like Jackson Dart was just dealing yesterday. But the New York Giants just can't help themselves. Just when last week we were all having the discussion about, I was telling myself, okay, the Giants probably could turn a corner here. You're being pretty pedestrian since you had Odell Beckham Jr. just star-wise. You finally have a quality quarterback since Eli Manning. Your star wide receiver is out. All of these things are going wrong, and yet the last 2 weeks, you have been able to muster up 2 huge wins. You beat the Chargers on the road, or were they at home? No, they were at home against the Chargers. And then last week, at home too as well. I think they played at home again last week. You go up against the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night, and you have the Cam Scatterboost storyline and all of these things going on, And then yesterday, you were about to get another quality win by beating the 4-2 Denver Broncos. Now, this is a Denver Broncos team that a lot of people, and a guy who covers the Broncos, he said it on Twitter yesterday. He's kind of like, you're 5-2, but yet you feel like you're 0-7, 0-6 just because how the Broncos season has gone with the inconsistencies that I'm going to discuss later on about my guy Bo Nix. My guy. I like Bo Nix, but me and him's got to come to Jesus meet sometimes. How bad was this loss for the G-Man? It was atrociously bad. Bad game management, bad coaching, all around. You can argue that this is kind of a good loss for the Giants because, number one, you're not going to win anything. You already put yourself in a rabbit hole. The playoffs is kind of like as stacked and loaded as the NFC is. You've already put yourself in a hole, so getting into the playoffs is an absolute long shot to begin with. But it's kind of like a good learning experience for your rookie quarterback and for the team as well. Because, you have your rookie quarterback, everything's going fine. The Giants, they're not really used to winning and having fun in this fashion. And you have Jackson Dart, the Broncos are trying to surge back. You throw that huge pick, bad pick. You're on your own side of the field, 3rd and 5. You can argue that it was a lot of coaching mismanagement as well while you're throwing the ball instead of trying to chew some clock. There's all type of components that can go into this, but it was a bad loss in the sense that you could have continued this profile that you were on. You could have been 3-4, fighting for a playoff push, saving Brian Daboll's job, which I want to give Brian Daboll a pass if I'm the Giants. I really do. You see how much Jackson Dart loves Brian Daboll, and you see how good Jackson Dart has been able to play so far under Brian Daboll. Even in the 2 losses against the Saints and, even yesterday against the Broncos, Jackson Dart just looks like the future. That last drive, when a collapse has been going on. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, the Broncos, for the first time in the history of the NFL, if my memory serves me correct, I hope I'm 100% right because this is a huge stat to give out. For the first time in the history of the NFL, a team scored 33 points in 1 quarter. This loss is going to hurt Giants fans for years. Just being a part of that stat and being on the negative side of that stat is just absolutely just mind-boggling and infuriating if I am a Giants fan. It is the testament of the Giants and how they've been one of the worst franchises since 2012, since they last won the Super Bowl. But if you're Brian Daboll, even with the bad mismanagement and lack of game management, things of that nature, I don't want John Mara and Joe Sheen and everybody involved up in the higher ups. I don't want them to take this season and the stuff that's happened and take it as a negative and move off of Brian Daboll. I think that this is the first time that Brian Daboll has been able to get his quarterback. He didn't want Daniel Jones. It's pretty evident. And he said it when he drafted Jackson Dart, he reminds me of the guy he first worked with when he was an offensive coordinator, and we're talking about the man Josh Allen. Their game highly resembles one another. So even if the season goes bad, you're 6-10, 6-11, 5-12, around that range, I would not go ahead and punt on Brian Daboll just yet. I'm scared that's what they're going to do. But even if you fire Brian Daboll, who is your hot candidate that you're going to get? That's another discussion for another day. Let's just get into the game. That drive, when all is going bad, this circle back to what I was talking about with, the final drive and Dart having a huge final drive. Jackson Dart with all the chips on the table, everything going wrong. The Broncos surge back. They're ahead. And you get this is kind of like your test and litmus test as a rookie. You're on the road. Big game, hostile environment. You're in Denver, Colorado. The fourth quarter, everything's going wrong. You got this team who's surging back in a historic fashion. How are you going to respond? And Jackson Dart went on to respond. Now, he got bailed out by a couple of bad throws. He made one big throw on that fourth down, but he, even with that huge fourth down play, they got the roughing the passer call, which I despise that call. That call was horrific. And also, let's talk about another call I didn't get to in the Cowboys segment of the podcast. That call on Dak Prescott when the helmet came off, that was absolutely crap job. Officials, that we cannot have that. I know Dak Prescott is starting to get the Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady treatment. You're the vet, you're going to get the majority of the calls, but come on. That was not a penalty by number 55. That was bogus. And even with this, that roughing the passer, I cannot remember what number it was for Jackson Dart. That call was absolutely abysmal. But neither here nor there. Jackson Dart, he continued. I think he threw 2 pickable balls deep. He threw one in the middle of the field and one to the sideline. And then on the third try, it was actually pretty good ball that he was thrown. And he got the call, pass interference, which y'all know I'm a referee. I call football, okay? So I see a lot of this stuff. I didn't love the call. It's one of those things, again, the emphasis nowadays when it comes to officiating is, does the defensive back get his head around to look at the football? He did not. He was kind of in the area of where the receiver was trying to make a play, and we had a pass interference call. I didn't love the call. Not in that situation where you're really bailing the team out. And Sean Payton let that official have it to his benefit, to be honest, because, pass interference in the end zone, they're going to get the ball onto the 3-yard line, wherever the penalty was at, where they was marking, and you get the 15-yard penalty, so you're getting them half the distance of the goal line. So the Giants have to get 1 yard, essentially, and you have all those timeouts at your disposal, and you're able to get the ball back because you're going to have to get the ball back. Because the chances of the Giants scoring with Cam Scatterbo, and is it Scatterbo? I mean, I don't know. And Jackson Dart, the likability of them scoring a touchdown was very high. So, Sean Payton arguably, and Adam Schefter said it yesterday, he probably just did a smart thing. But even with that, Jackson Dart was able to accomplish the goal and to go down and score a touchdown. You cannot ask nothing for your rookie quarterback. And then, the question going into after the game, Brian Burns was not happy about it, leaving the game yesterday. And he was like, dropping 8, something around, they only rushed 3 passers. Yeah, you can't do it. You have all those pass rushers at your disposal. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Sexy Dexter Lawrence. Okay. You got to get a pass rush on Bo Nix. This is where your pass rush is needed most. You have 30 seconds left in the game, roughly, if I remember from the top of my head. And the Broncos have no timeouts, if I do remember correctly as well. I think they had no timeouts. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. And Bo Nix just goes down, gets 2 passes, and boom, the ball game is over. Granted, they were a couple of nice thrown deep balls, specifically the first one. I don't even think that throw was even going to that wide receiver. I can't even remember who caught it because I saw Cortland Sutton running right past the ball, and I was sitting there like, and the defensive back was draped over the wide receiver, and he just catches it perfectly right there. Everything just went wrong in that drive because you didn't have a pass rush, and Bo Nix was able to do that. Sit back in the pocket, call his girlfriend, and things of that nature. move the ball down the field, and kick the game-winning field goal. And this is where we're going to move on to the Broncos side of things. This game simply itself exemplified my problems when it comes to Bo Nix. He is easy to like. He throws a nice football, nice spiral, athletically gifted, big arm, etc., etc., etc. But he is wildly inconsistent. Wildly. But to his credit, and I forgot this little tip here, the Giants were up 26-8 with 5 minutes left. The idea of them coming back at that point in time was like slim to none. And Bo Nix, in his last 5 drives of the game, touchdown, 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 field goal. I mean, it is literally the Bo Nix experience. And I discussed this with the Philadelphia Eagles a couple weeks ago. Bo Nix, and it's the thing about this Broncos team, and they are exciting to watch because of this aspect. You have the phenomenal defense, which they were pretty had yesterday, but, it's one game. Your defense is going to have that day where they're not going to, be able to be the best that they can. It happens in the NFL, specifically when you got a rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart. You don't have a lot of tape on him. So, those type of games are liable to happen with your rookie quarterback. But you have Bo Nix, and what happened against Philly, he goes in and doesn't do nothing for the first half of the game, and in the last half against the Eagles, it's like a switch turns on. I don't know what it is, but it is simply the Bo Nix experience. And this is Bo Nix's stat line. He threw the ball 50 times. He had a horrific completion percentage. He was 25 from 50. What is that? From the top of my head, what is that? 54%? Absolutely abysmal. 279 yards. And he had a quarterback rating of 82 and a passer rating of 83, which is absolutely significantly high given his completion percentage. He threw 2 touchdowns, and I think he rushed for 2. So he had 4 touchdowns on the day. And they all came in basically the last 17, 16 minutes of the game. It is absolutely, in the last 15 minutes of the game, because they didn't score until the fourth quarter. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Bo Nix, and he and Michael Penix, and we're going to talk about Michael Penix later because I have more problems with him than what I do with Bo Nix because, I think Bo Nix is the better quarterback and the better franchise quarterback. But no matter how ugly it may be, and it has been, Bo Nix and the Broncos find ways to win games. And Bo Nix, give credit to him, and this is a characteristic that you want in your quarterback. Even with nothing going your way all game, when the thick gets thin with the Eagles, against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road and at home against the Giants, you were able in the clutch to make plays. What more can you ask? And a lot of people get caught up with the stats and the way things are, but guess what? And we're going to talk about it with Philly next. These teams find out ways to win. Now, when they get into the playoffs, do I trust them to do this against better opponents? Absolutely not. You can do this stuff against the Giants, but when you face a Chiefs, a Colts, a Chargers, etc., you're not going to be able to pull that stunt there because you're going to have better, well-ran teams all around than what you faced yesterday. And no matter how bad it's been, the Broncos find ways to win. When we can talk about the late games, the late game situations when it comes to Giants sending 3, missed extra points, all of that goes into perspective when we just talk about finding ways to win, not shooting yourself in the foot. And that is what the Giants do. Giants did, and the Broncos just found a way to win. There's nothing else I can really take away from that.